Cartoon Network, from my perspective, has always been the animation-based channel I'd been the least interested in. That's not to say it has the worst shows, far from it, but Disney Channel and Nickelodeon were just much bigger names across my childhood. In retrospect, this was considered the home of cartoons for a reason. An enormous back catalogue of Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera classics, dozens of memorable, iconic original shows, and a willingness to fish for great new ideas made this a goldmine of cartoon entertainment in the 90s and 2000s. As a casual observer, it's no secret that their most iconic creations were three little girls, representing sugar, spice, and everything nice. The Powerpuff Girls is many things: an action series, a comedic laugh riot, and a way of life to those who grew up with it on TV. As far as Cartoon Network reruns went, this was one of those shows I watched more of, but since this wasn't as heavily advertised by the late 2000s as their then running offerings, I didn't quite feel the Powerpuff mania. Maybe this is why I prefer even Disney Channel. Anyways, I've grown up since then and have returned to this classic cartoon every now and again. There are reasons I'm not gonna stop, namely, it's good. But just how good? The concept of superpowered little girls was created by Craig McCracken in 1992. Being a CalArts student at the time, they were featured in a short he made where they were called the Whoop-Ass Girls. The name didn't stick, but what did were the general character designs and the action. Well into '95 when they debuted on TV. A couple more shorts were made for the Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon anthology series, which saw the genesis of several other iconic series, but a full series about Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup didn't make it to air until November 18, 1998. It was well worth the wait, as it immediately became CN's most popular show, topping the ratings and earning fans of all ages. It had a healthy, if excessive run of 6 seasons and 78 episodes before finally finishing on March 25, 2005, but it continues to produce money and inspiration to this day. Now, I personally grew up after the show's cancellation, so like I said, it wasn't talk of the town for my generation. That didn't stop me from finding some amusement in its later reruns, but I couldn't really talk about it to other kids. Years passed, and when the reboot came out, which will not be covered in this video, I checked out the older episodes again out of curiosity and found many new favorites. It's never struck me as a girly show despite much of the merchandise being catered to little girls. I mean, no figure. What keeps me, and many other basement dwellers, hooked are the jokes, characters, and action sequences. The setup of this show takes a page from the superhero guidebook and draws rainbows and hearts all over it. Professor Utonium attempts to make little girls through chemistry, literally using sugar, spice, and everything nice. However, he knocks into Chemical X, which he had suspended over the delicate experiment for some reason. But hey, everything turned out okay. The Powerpuff Girls are created with superpowers, and as they learn to live life, they struggle with monsters, enemies, and each other in the city of Townsville! It's a solid origin story engraved into the show's title sequence, so pretty much everyone knows who they are and what they do. As for the story of the series itself, it takes pride in being episodic, like most comedies. Occasionally there'll be a returning one-off villain, ally, or theme, but the Powerpuff Girls keeps its continuity clean. Every episode is its self-contained adventure, with the narrator introducing us to the city of Townsville at the start, and announcing that the day is saved in the end. I'll get more into this with the show's evolution, but the ending announcement gets mixed up a lot more as the years go on. He thanks everyone from Mojo Jojo to a cat, to Benjamin Franklin and his invention of daylight savings. Regardless, the Powerpuff Girls always have a part in saving Townsville, and it's always really fun and cute to see, especially since they bounce off each other so well. Blossom's easily my favourite. Who'd have thought a team of kindergartners could have such a good voice of reason? Her being smarter and braver than the others makes for some entertaining storylines, and when she's giving out instructions, I just have more confidence in the whole group. Then you have fan favourite Bubbles. Her voice gets annoying after a while, but I like her all the same. Her solo episodes are often some of the show's best. Then there's Buttercup, who has her charming moments despite being the rough and tough one. I prefer it when she's less of a bully to her sisters and more of an ironically cute tomboy. My favourite character of the show has to be the creator/father, however, Professor Utonium. Yeah, show about girls and my favourite character's a male, but he's also a great subversion of cartoon dads, actually being smart. Sure, he doesn't save the day that often, but he's a massive help to the girls, being able to comfort and love them in their hours of need. He can be a little overprotective of them at times, as seen in Uh-Oh Dynamo and Daylight Savings, but this makes him a more interesting character. He's got flaws and has to learn how to be a dad to superheroes. Okay, enough gushing over this square. Who are some other allies to the girls? Well, at the Townsville City Hall resides the mayor and his assistant, Miss Bellum. The mayor is the show's standard dumb character, but can we take a moment to remember how there was once political satire without references to real-life politicians? I've never been deeply invested in Miss Bellum, but I get the joke with how you never see her face, but she's still a good female character despite just being a sexy body. Plus, her role as a sort of mother figure to the girls isn't explored greatly, but it's sweet when it turns up. Another woman in Townsville is the girls' teacher, Miss Keene, and she's just nice. I honestly think that she has less of an important role than Miss Bellum, but I understand that the girls need a teacher and another woman to look up to. And lastly for allies is the show's narrator, who opens and concludes episodes and occasionally adds some flavour to a scene. He's easily one of Tom Kenny's best roles because he just melts into it. There's never a dull moment with the show's narrator. But what's a good superhero show without some supervillains? The girls' arch-nemesis being Mojo Jojo, a super-intelligent monkey whose main hobby is building lasers to eradicate the Powerpuff Girls. He works best as a comedic villain and a foil to the girls' childish shenanigans, like in Child Fearing and Just Another Manic Mojo. Then there's fan-favourite Him, who's just the devil, but they call him Him for mystery's sake. He tends to mess with the girls emotionally, and the horror in his episode is, for better or worse, really effective. It's no coincidence they're some of the show's best. Gang Green Gang are a pack of teenage hooligans who do teenage hooligan things, and which ones stick out depend on the episode. I can't really say more about them, sorry. Then you've got Princess Morebucks, a spoiled brat who wants to be a Powerpuff Girl herself. Her introductory episode, Stuck Up Up and Away, is rock solid and does a good job of giving the girls a more direct rival. Speaking of whom, the Rowdy Rough Boys are gender-swapped versions of them, and while their introductory episode is also kinda good, they don't appear again until season 5, and I'll explain why that's an issue later on. As for more minor villains, Fuzzy Lumpkins had potential for stories about having a quick temper, and I wish they expanded more on that for his last few. Seducer works as a twist in her alright debut episode, then she just gets better in her remaining 2 appearances, and the Amoeba Boys suck eggs. They were funny in their debut in one of the pilots, but during the series, them being incompetent villains is one joke, and it's run into the ground. Despite them, the Powerpuffs had amassed a big, threatening rogues gallery pretty early on, but the one-offs vary in writing quality immensely. In terms of overall tone, the Powerpuff Girls is a balancing act. It manages to contrast fluffy, cute stories well with dark, gritty action, and in some cases vice versa. I don't feel like the show goes tone deaf all that often. It's always very obvious how it wants you to feel. During the action sequences, excited. These scenes always move quickly, and each hit and punch is satisfying. Action's not my go-to thing, but I respect when it's well done. Now, comedy-wise, this show's a gold mine. When episodes aren't hardcore, they're downright laugh riots. Some gags even heading into the god tier known as quotability. Of course, being an animated series, they need a strong art style to bring these elements to life, and it has one of the studio's long-lasting habits. This was Hanna-Barbera's last show before Will Hanna and Joe Barbera passed away, but this was under the earliest cartoons. Being a transitional series, it's got the best of both worlds. The geometric style of Hanna-Barbera's classics, and more genuine motion in terms of going from one cell to the next, like Dexter's Lab and Johnny Bravo. I find it fascinating how, since this show lasted a decent amount of time, and crossed the turn of the millennium, the more contemporary stylings of aesthetics reflect this change as well. For instance, clothes and technology in the first 3 seasons look straight out of the 90s, while in the 4, 5, and 6, they look straight out of the 2000s. But more about the show's evolution, and where I think it rose and or fell. Starting with the first season, it's easily the most gritty looking. Blue skies were rare, and action was much more prominent and intense. Although this is what I think of when Powerpuff Girls comes to mind, and there are plenty of good episodes in here, I don't like going back to the super early ones. Not every show is perfect at the beginning, and the show starts to shine a lot brighter later on into season 1, and even brighter into 2 and 3. The art style was cleaned up to be a lot cuter, which I think benefited the show, making it more accessible to kids. They also started focusing more on jokes, so yeah, for me, it doesn't get much better than season 3. This leads into season 4, perhaps the start of the decline in quality, and I say start because it's still got plenty of great episodes. There's just one problem: every episode's half an hour long. Already the show didn't have boundless luck with the format, but a lot of stories here just drag. This is also due to much of the team working on the 2002 movie, which itself turned out fine. Then creator Craig McCracken gave the showrunning duties over to writer Chris Savino, and this is where there's a more definitive gap between old and new. The art style is even cleaner, yes, despite the girls' heads being too large and a lot of the charm of the first 4 seasons depleting, and doing so fast. I'd love to talk more in depth about which episodes in these last few seasons are good or bad, but I don't have the time. I can't upload 15-minute videos yet, so I'll save individual episode talk for the next video. This was just looking back on what I think made the show at large work, but every show needs episodes, even if they vary in quality. The Powerpuff Girls is mostly high quality though, so don't worry. Goodbye for now.